We are ready to make our first pom-pom. So here is the pom-pom maker. You can tell the size I'm using by the color, but it's the largest size. And I have my yarn ready to go. I've got the yarn coming out one end so I can smoothly pull it out and wrap it as I go. And I love to put it in like a basket or a bag if I'm sitting in a comfy spot, and then I can just pull it right out of there. So the pom-pom maker opens like this, and we just need one side at a time. So you can keep one side closed and open up the other side. And these two hinges do separate, but we want to keep them together. So we will just try and keep them lined up as we get started. And I go from left to right. I'm right-handed, and I hold the yarn with my left thumb just to kind of keep it secure. And then my hand is also keeping the pom-pom maker secure as well. So I just get started on wrapping it. I wrap it a few times to get it started, and then I will just stack it over onto the end. So wrap, 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 wrap. And then after I've wrapped a few times, I can use my thumb and just scoot it over to the side. So these are just lined up really neatly side by side. They're not stacked on top of each other. So we've got a single layer, and we're gonna go all the way across on this single layer. And once I can get going, then I'm able to use my finger to kind of pull it to the side. Or you can just keep wrapping and then stack it up, whichever you prefer. Wrap, 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 and then bring it over, and it's just right up next to the yarn beside it. And doing it this way keeps it nice and neat, which allows us to fit more yarn on the pom-pom, because we want a nice full pom-pom, and the more yarn we can fit, then the fuller it is. So my first layer is by far the neatest. Just kind of get a good base. And then I start and just begin wrapping from where I stopped on that end, and then go back across to the other side. And I'm not as worried because I've got the first layer set up for me. I'm not as worried about the second layer, but I'm still just kind of wrapping along neatly, going from one side to the other. It's okay if it stacks on top of each other a little bit more rather than just beside each other. But as I go back and forth, I'm just filling it in, and I can kind of go faster and faster as I get a rhythm for it. So I will just keep wrapping, and this will take a couple of minutes, and you'll get the hang of it as you do it more and more, and it'll be something that you can probably do while you're watching TV or something if you enjoy that. But for now, don't be worried if it takes some concentration to kind of watch where your yarn's going. I'm just wrapping and moving along, and as you can see, I'm moving faster. I'm not worried as much about where my yarn is landing because I am just adding some bulk onto it now. And I know I'm finished wrapping when this whole arch is filled in with yarn. I don't want there to be that shape with this gap right here. I'm going to fill that in. So I am putting yarn on the sides, but now I'm starting to focus on the middle as I add more yarn to my pom-pom, and I'm going to be thinking about really filling in that middle with yarn to where this whole side is filled up, and we've kind of got it flat along the bottom. So we've got a flat layer rather than that gap, that rainbow gap in the middle. Okay, so I think this will work. And what I like to do at this point is just trim it off and close it up. And then I've got one side full and one side empty. So I just open this up and do the same thing again on this side. Okay, so I've got the second side done, and I am closing it up. So my pom-pom maker is closed with yarn on both sides. I'm taking my sharp scissors, and I'm starting at one end, and you can see, if you remember, there's a spot there for our scissors just to stick in. and I can just cut now all along this side, and then I'll be able to keep going and cut the yarn on this side as well. Now don't worry, your pom pom maker will stay closed, so our yarn is not going anywhere yet. I'm taking a piece of yarn and fitting it inside the pom pom maker, and I'm leaving it long enough to where I can wrap it around a couple of times. So give yourself maybe like 12 inches, and I am pulling it around to the other side and crossing over, and then I'm just pulling it tight and doing that again, flipping it over, crossing, and I'm going to pull again because I want it tight, and then I'm going to make that crossover one more time, pull it tight, and then do a knot and another knot, almost just like you're tying your shoes right there, twice, and that's nice and tight. I'm going to trim it off, and then now we can safely open our pom pom maker because our yarn is attached. So now I'm opening it up. This part is kind of nerve-wracking because it feels like everything's going to come apart, and you can just kind of watch it to make sure you didn't forget to cut something that needs to be cut, but it should be fine. So I just take off my pom pom maker, which comes apart in two sides, and I just set it to the side, and I have my pom pom. Now it's not going to be perfectly round, it's going to be more like an egg shape, and we will go ahead and trim this up. For trimming the pom pom, I like to make a little portable trash can, so I'll just take a basket or something that will fit a sack down inside of it, and then I can use that to catch my trimmings. And then I'm thinking we can use our yarn trimmings for like an ornament or something, or put it in a glass jar for decoration. So we've got our scissors and our pom pom, and we are ready to start trimming. And I think this is probably the part that maybe has the biggest learning curve as far as it is time to trim. We have our trash bag and our sharp scissors, and we can just start cutting. Now this part can be a little bit intimidating, and I think this is the part that took me the longest to get the hang of because I always felt like I was trimming too much. And honestly, you probably can't trim too much, especially for those of us starting out and just getting the feel of it. It's one of those things where you trim a little bit and then you trim some more, because you have to get quite a bit of the yarn trimmed off in order for the round pom-pom shape to show up and for it to look good. You can kind of see how much I'm cutting off. It's quite a bit. So I just kind of get it started, and it's gonna look crazy. So don't be worried. Yours will look crazy, and then you'll just come back and shape it up the way you want it here in just a little bit. So I'm just trimming just to get that initial outer layer off, because this is where we'll be able to see more of the pom-pom like density, the shape, when the yarn is closer together on the inside. And you can definitely go ahead and just trim your outer edge lightly and then trim again a second layer as you're getting the hang of it. But I just kind of want to show you how I just go for it. So it's looking a little crazy, but once I get that initial layer trimmed, then I just start kind of following a path around and just kind of eye it as I go. I want my pom-pom to be pretty round. and close together. We've got lots of crazy hairs, some odd shapes, some sections that have the longer pieces of yarn. And we're just looking at that a section at a time, and it can be very intimidating. I can be, you know, completely honest with you. Like when I first tried this, I would be like, oh my gosh, this is not gonna work, and get frustrated. But don't worry. Even if you have a few that don't work out, you'll get the hang of it. And basically we're just giving our pom-pom a bad haircut and then coming back around and trimming it up into a good one. So it's gonna look ugly before it looks pretty. Okay, so I kind of want to stop and get an idea of where I'm at. And I just like to run it between my hands like this. And then just see, okay, where do I need to trim this up? Do that a little bit and then brush off pieces that I've cut that may not have fallen off, and the pieces that might be laying down that need to stand out so I can see where that is. I'm just trimming these stray hairs in sections, and go back and trim some more. At this point, I'm not taking off a lot of length. I'm just evening things out a little bit. And honestly too, you know, it's really just personal preference on how you want it to look. Don't feel like it has to be perfect. I'm kind of somewhere in between. I'm not super picky about every little piece, but I do want it to look smooth and fluffy all at the same time. That's not confusing, is it? I want it to look even, I guess, would be a good way to say that. Like, I don't want it to have any patches that might distract us from the overall look of a cute little fluffy snowball pom-pom. So I'm just kind of running my scissors along to see if there's any stray pieces of yarn that are tall. Then rolling it in my hands. Yeah, I think that's pretty good. And we can always come back later and look at it again and see what we think. As you can tell, you know, it's not, we could just keep on going and drive ourselves crazy, or we can back up and look at it from a distance and think, that is so cute, and be happy with it. And just to kind of give you an idea of what it's looking like, you know, when we add a few to our wreath, isn't that so pretty? So we'll stack this side around and then fill them in on the sides, and this is gonna be amazing.